Many years ago, there was a popular weekly magazine called the Saturday Evening Post. The cover would often feature paintings done by well-known artists, and one memorable cover was done by Norman Rockwell. An author has described it like this: there is a restaurant in a city somewhere, a sort of quick lunch place with no tablecloths on the tables, just the ketchup and mustard jars on the bare wood. It seems to be raining outside. An elderly man with a raincoat and umbrella has turned at the door. Another man glances up as he sits there smoking a cigar over a newspaper and the remains of his coffee. Two teenagers sit at a table, one of them with a cigarette in his mouth, and they are all looking at the same thing, which is an old woman and a small boy who are sharing a table with the teenagers. Their heads are bowed. They are saying grace. The people watching watch with a dazed fascination. The small boy's ears stick out from his head like the handles of a jug. The old woman's eyes are closed, her hair untidy under a hat that has seen better days. The people are watching something that you feel they may have been part of once, but no longer. Through the plate glass window and rain, the city looks dim, monotonous, industrial. The old woman and small boy are saying grace there, and for a moment, the silence in the place is fathomless. The watchers are watching something they have all but forgotten, and will probably forget again as soon as the moment passes. They could be watching creatures from another planet. The old woman and the boy in their old-fashioned clothes, praying their old-fashioned prayers, are leftovers from a day that has long since ceased to be. And the author went on to comment, the church is called, you and I are called, to be Christ's body, to be life givers. And when I think of that, I think of a New England college where I preach from time to time in a vast Gothic chapel that is used only once or twice a year, and the rest of the time stands empty. And I remember how the last time I was there and looked out into all that great vaulted space, which month after month is full of nothing but shadows, it struck me as saying much of what the Rockwell cover was saying. The other people in the restaurant look with dazed astonishment at the old woman and the small boy at their prayers, because something seems to be alive and real inside them in that unlikely place. Something that in many a place where you would expect to find it seems scarcely alive at all. Even when churches are full to overflowing, it is often hard not to sense an inner emptiness, as great as the emptiness of that college chapel. The sense that though the great feast is still in progress, and many of the guests are still in their seats, the heart has somehow gone out of it. The passion, the adventure have been replaced by shadows, and the host himself no longer there. And what Rockwell painted 60 years ago, and what the author wrote 30 years ago, could have just as well been painted or written yesterday, because it is still the truth of it, even more so, far more so. For the past 60 years, the number of those who say they are Christian has been steadily declining, and the bottom has dropped out of church attendance, with only 23% of believers attending weekly services. More and more young people have turned away from the church over the years, and now they are being joined by people of all ages. What once was has ceased to be, And many people have all but forgotten, no longer a part of what they were once a part of. And what was alive and real in that old woman and small boy in that unlikely place is scarcely alive and real at all in the one place you would expect to find it, the church. And while people may still go through the motions, it often seems that the heart has gone out of it for many. The passion and sense of adventure has died away, and the host of the feast has gone missing. And you know, sometimes I think that's the real crisis today. That beneath the other crises we face is the crisis of faith. Fewer and fewer have anything real or solid in their lives to guide and support and sustain them in such times as we are in. Little or no faith, except in themselves. Little or no belief, at least not in anything beyond themselves. Little or no strength, except only the strength they can find in themselves. No truth, except for their own opinions. Few values, apart from the values that suit them. And certainly no need to obey anything or anyone other than themselves. And in turning away from the church, they've turned away from what once gave them a center and source. And they've not found another. And without that center and source, they are easily driven by fear, easily taken in by all the lovely lies, easily ignore the prejudice within. Fewer and fewer have anywhere to turn except themselves, and it is not enough. And if at this point you're beginning to wonder why I'm talking about this with you who are in church nearly every Sunday, well, the answer is this. The crisis of faith comes from the crisis of the church. The painful truth is that the churches, gave people and continues to give people plenty of reasons to turn away. And we as a church need to make sure we're not giving those same reasons to people. More than ever, this nation, our culture, our communities need the church. Need churches to be churches and Christians to be Christians, because when churches are churches and Christians are Christian, justice and right doing flow, healing comes, hope arises. It was the church that gave birth to the civil rights movement. The church has founded countless hospitals all over the world. Christians have brought healing and hope to millions upon millions. The church has been a source of strength in hard times, Christians a light in the darkest of times. But if ever people are to find their way back to what they lost, find their way back to the church, to faith, to having a center and source that do not fail, being given the strength and courage and love they need to manage the coronavirus, to work to establish justice, to deal with other crises, then the church must find what it has lost, the heart and passion, what is real and live, the host that went missing. Just as more and more people slowly forgot what once had meaning to them, more and more churches forgot what once had meaning to them, forgot what it meant to be the church, to be Christian. So before all else, what we must do if there is to be hope for the church, hope for those far from faith, hope for our nation, is to remember what so many have forgotten. Remember what it means to be Christian. And one good way to do that is what a writer did more than 150 years ago, as he observed his fellow Christians in his native country, Denmark, which was a Christian nation. He realized that a distinction had to be made between Christianity and what he called Christendom. Christendom is the crowd. Christianity is the single individual before God. Christendom is a crowd or nation of people who say they are Christian, but who do not live it. Christianity is the single individual who strives to live it, but who knows he's not there by a long shot. In Christendom, the truth is whatever the crowd decides to be the truth. In Christianity, the truth is Christ. To become a member of Christendom is easy. All you need is to be born and get baptized. To become a Christian is extremely hard. You have to die to yourself and be transformed. Christendom makes no demands upon the believer. Christianity demands everything from the believer. In Christendom, no sacrifices are required. Christendom pays off. In Christianity, many sacrifices are required. Christianity costs. Christendom is the disciple Peter telling Jesus he must not suffer. Christianity is being willing to suffer for the truth, for the sake of God. In Christendom, a person is accepted by imitating everyone else. In Christianity, a person is accepted by imitating Christ. In Christendom, every 4 years, politicians declare their faith, and everyone feels hopeful. In Christianity, every day you must declare your faith, and hope is found only in God. In Christendom, the idea is to make us feel comfortable and good about ourselves, regardless of how we live. In Christianity, the idea is to wake us up out of our comfortableness and challenge us to live differently. In Christendom, the goal is to make us into nice people who fit into our culture. In Christianity, the goal is to make us into new people who stand out from our culture. Christendom is being careful and practical for our own sake. Christianity is being a fool for Christ's sake. Or to put it in a nutshell, in Christendom, you can do whatever you like, be pretty much out for yourself, pursue security and a good income and success without thought for anyone else, just as long as you're nice to your friends now and then. In Christianity, it goes like this: if any man would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit him if he gains the whole world and forfeits his life? Or to put it still another way, in Christendom, all people want is that God should love and serve them. In Christianity, all people want is to love and serve God. Or you could just say, Christendom is the crowd gawking in embarrassment. Christianity is the old woman and the small boy at their prayers in some dingy diner. If the church, if believers, if we ourselves are to be filled with passion, if something real and alive is to be found again in the churches, if Christ is to be found in his own church, that is what is required of us all who attend week after week. That is what must be found if those outside the church are to find faith again, and the church is to make a difference. For far too long, Christians have taken comfort in the thought that we are a Christian nation, as if a nation could be Christian apart from Christians who are truly Christian. Trust me, there's nothing very Christian about what you see and hear on the news every day, or what's online, or the games many find entertaining. And if politicians or others do say something, it often comes across as a shabby, shallow version of the real thing. If we really want to resolve the crises that so threaten us, and manage the crises yet to come, we need the real thing. Of course, after being reminded of what true Christianity is, more than a few of us might be tempted to join those who have turned away. Mark Twain sure thought that being Christian wasn't such a hot idea. In a story called The Stranger, he tells of a teenage youth who daydreams himself back into another time, and there meets a stranger, another teenage boy with magic and unearthly powers, who turns out to be a visitor from another planet. They become friends, and one day the boy asks the stranger if he is a Christian, and the stranger replies that no, he's not. Whereupon the boy declares that then his mission will be to convert him, make him into a Christian. But the stranger pleads, oh please, please don't do that, for then I shall be very, very lonely. The boy doesn't understand what the stranger meant, and asks him why becoming a Christian would make him so lonely. And the stranger replies that from what he can tell from looking around in this world, he'd be the only one. And it can get lonely, because it makes you an oddball who doesn't fit in very well, maybe not even want to fit in, who can't buy into all the political and cultural and religious nonsense that you see and hear, who questions views and beliefs and opinions others don't question, who stands up for, stands against, stands for people and proposals others won't, who might get unfriended or derided, even hated. On the other hand, you will have life like fewer and fewer find these days. As that author I quoted at the outset has put it, the life you clutch, hoard, guard, play safe with is in the end a life worth little to anybody, including yourself. And only a life given away for love's sake is a life worth living. That is the life Christianity is all about. And the kind of life Christendom knows nothing about. We desperately need churches to be churches. We desperately need Christians to be Christian, because we desperately need the healing and hope only God and following the way of Christ can bring. Amen.